Hello, fans, once more. Welcome back to my channel back on YouTube, doing my 2025 NFL predictions week one. That is correct, week one here, getting started this week. All starts on Thursday night. 7 games on schedule to look at, 7 good games. Those of you who are new around here, the reason I pick 7 games a week is because if I did all the games in the week, I predict all the teams in the all games and all teams in the week, the videos would be way too long. That's why I do 7 a week. The best 7 games in my mind, to my opinion, what I think are the best 7 games. Don't know if everyone's going to like that, but that's how we do it if you're new around here. As we get into it today, week one NFL predictions. It all starts Thursday night with the defending Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts, going up against the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. The Cowboys, who recently got rid of Micah Parsons, their linebacker, who they sent to Green Bay. We'll talk about Green Bay here shortly. But for the Eagles and Cowboys, Cowboys are pretty much given up on defense altogether by trading a linebacker who they couldn't get a contract issue with. I think that's going to be the Cowboys' issue. Trading in one of your best linebackers to a team that's a contender. Cowboys pretty much take themselves out of being a contender for the NFC East, I think, after that. With the defense, and I think Jalen Hurts and the Eagles now in this one, because what he has very good tight ends. He has very good running back in Saquon Barkley behind him. And I just think the Eagles, after the Cowboys trade Micah Parsons backers, I just think it makes the Eagles game this week for the Eagles. I think it gives the Eagles a little bit more of an advantage this week. Overall, the Eagles are one of those teams, after winning Super Bowl last year, they're one of those teams, I like them to win the NFC. I said this last week when I did my preseason predictions, when I picked top 7 teams in the finish of the year and make the playoffs. I picked the Eagles as the number 1 seed because I think the Eagles are going to be a good team. I think they do what they have to do to get back to the postseason. And I think the Eagles, after Michael Parsons get traded by the Cowboys last week to the Packers, I really think that this game helps the Eagles out. So I'm going to take the Eagles in this one on Thursday night in their season opener as the defending champions in week one. I don't usually do good in week one, but we'll see. So I'm taking the Eagles here in week one to start against the Cowboys. Next up, going with my favorite team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and what they have against the LA Chargers and Justin Herbert. This game going on Friday night down in Brazil. Second straight year there's an NFL game in Brazil. One of those. Last year was the Packers and the Eagles. This year it's the Eagles and Chiefs. And you're going to say it, the Chiefs, as a fan, I'll just say this. With what the Chiefs have this year, I think the offensive line is the number 1 weakness for the Chiefs. Defensive line looks okay. There was some thoughts I had on the roster when they made the announcement who's going to make the team. It's like, why would you pick some of these guys over other players? But I think I see why they did it that way. And I kind of feel like it's one of those matchups where the Chargers and Chiefs, Justin Herbert doesn't get the Chiefs in Arrowhead, doesn't get the Chiefs at home, but is technically a Chargers home game in this game. I do think there's a area in this matchup where after the Chargers last year lost to the Chiefs at home, I think the Chargers and Justin Herbert should have a better chance playing in this game in Brazil against Chiefs. Neutral site. Can you go to a neutral site and disrupt the Chiefs? Yes, I think the Chargers defensive line might be a little bit better than the Chiefs offensive line. Chiefs have a lot of offensive linemen who are new this year. Grant Hopper and Trey Smith are the only 2 of a few that remain the same, as well as Jawan Taylor, another one. So those are the 3 guys that remain the same pretty much. The rest, not so sure. But I do think this one's going to be a close game at the end of the day. And I see the Chargers barely pulling out a win. Maybe a 2-point win as a Chiefs win. That's just what I think. And I could be wrong, I could be right, though. That's all that matters. Week one's always tough. I always do bad in week one, just for a recap over the last 5 years, and I always finish with a good record. So, see what happens with this one as I'm taking the Chargers over my Chiefs. See what happens there. Next up, we have the Giants, who finished last in the NFC East last year. They're going up against the Commanders, a team in Jaden Daniels in his second year. With Jaden Daniels entering year number 2 for him in his career, can he do what he did last year? I think personally the Commanders are one of those teams that might be built to and I think to me they remind me kind of the Bengals and Joe Burrow Bengals from a few years ago that made it to playoffs, lost in a championship game, and then the year after went back, played this same team like the Chiefs, like the Bengals and Joe Burrow a few years ago, beat them at their home field and went to the Super Bowl, but lost. I think Jaden Daniels of the Commanders, that is this year for them. Year number 2, and a year for him to build on it. I think that's why I picked the Bengals to be number 5 seed earlier on last week. Do they do that? I think personally, yes. I think there might be some hiccups here and there with him in year number 2, just like the Bengals and Joe Burrow from a few years ago. But do they make it to the Super Bowl and win? That's the biggest question. But it's only week 1, and with week 1 coming in, Giants are one of those teams that released their starting quarterback that they had to finish off the year in Tommy DeVito that was out of Illinois. They released him a few weeks ago, and unfortunately for the Giants, they did that. Released the starting quarterback. Don't know who's starting. I think it's one of the rookies, maybe. But for the Commanders and J.D. Daniels, I think this is the most complete Commanders team. I think the Commanders do what they need to do. I think they win this game by quite a bit at the end of the day. So give me the Commanders here in week 1. Going home favorite so far with the home teams plus 1 neutral site game so far with the home team in the neutral site. Next up we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield. They're up against the Atlanta Falcons. Yep, the Falcons and Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. The Falcons, last year they started up pretty hot. They didn't make it to the postseason, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of those teams, Baker Mayfield, they did make it there. But one thing the Buccaneers are getting back, they're getting back Chris Godwin, one of their best receivers. They have Mike Evans coming back for the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, the quarterback. The question, though, is the offensive lineman. Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, who was one of the best offensive linemen in the game for the Buccaneers in the past few years, is going to be missing some time with injuries. So we'll see what happens there in Tampa Bay with the offensive line, how that makeshift offensive line looks. Baker Mayfield, can they protect him? Yes, this is one team where I think the Falcons and Buccaneers, one game where I think you're going to look at a game where it could end up being a close game. I think Baker Mayfield can make the plays that the Buccaneers need to do to win. And I think the Buccaneers pick up an early season win against the Falcons here in week 1, as I did pick them last week to be the number 3 seed in the NFC at the end of the season. So give me the Buccaneers here in week 1. Up after that, we go out west for the first time. The San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey against the Seahawks, and Geno Smith, or this is the Seahawks. I guess Geno Smith no longer there. He's in Vegas, if I am correct. But looking at this one, the 49ers last year finished in last place in the NFC West. Well, the Seahawks finished in second. Seahawks, if I am correct, I think they made the playoffs last year, but I don't remember that much. It's way back a long time ago. But looking at this matchup, 49ers are one of those teams this year. I predicted them last week when I did my preseason predictions to be the number 4 seed in the NFC and make the playoffs, win the division in the NFC West. I think the NFC West this year as a whole, you have the Rams competing, you have the Seahawks competing, you have the 49ers competing, Arizona Cardinals. I'm not so sure about the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think they're going to be a team that competes with the rest of this division this year. But early on, think about it, I do think it's going to be a 3-team race in this division to find out who wins. At the end of the day, I do think the 49ers are that one team that definitely gets a chance. If Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy can stay healthy, and George Kittle, who's getting a little bit older, if the 3 of them can stay healthy on offense, and they have an offensive line that stays healthy, I think the 49ers will be just fine overall. And Seattle's going on the road. It's a tough place to play. Seattle's always tough to play for teams. I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be a hostile environment. I think the 49ers come away, escape with the win this one on a Sunday afternoon here. Moving on. Next one, Sunday afternoon. The Lions, Jared Goff, they're going to Green Bay to take on the Packers and Jordan Love. And, the Lions last year, division winner. I predict them to be the number 2 seed going into 2025. Can they do that? At the end of the day, I personally think the Packers and Lions, these 2 teams, will be there. I do think the Packers missed the postseason this year because I do think the Bears will be there with the Vikings. But the NFC North is the one division where I think that all 4 teams where I think all 4 teams will have a chance to make the postseason and be in the playoffs. I think the Packers are the one team that's the odd team out overall, but getting Micah Parsons at linebacker, that might help them out now. Could they possibly flip with the Bears who had 7 or the Vikings that I had at 6? I think there's a chance. if Micah Parsons helps that defense out overall. Playing home against the Lions in week 1, you can definitely say that it could be a win in Green Bay. I do think the Packers win it in week 1 overall against the Lions with an upset win. So giving the Packers to go at home and get an upset in week 1 on Sunday. Moving on, Sunday night's game. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, the last 2 quarterbacks to win MVP in the NFL. You know, the last 2 overall. Bills playing at home, Ravens, rematch of the divisional playoffs from last year. 2 teams that I think will be finishing 1, 2, or 3 in the playoffs this year, along with Kansas City. And which one, though, can beat the Chiefs to get to Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco? It's a good question. It's a tough question. And on a Sunday night game last year, we saw what the Ravens did in the playoffs on a Sunday night and win in the divisional round. This year, in the regular season of week 1, at least it's not going to be as cold for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, so I think that might help them out a bit to keep a close game. At the end of the day, I think the Bills come away with this one, win by a field goal, and home is the home team for week 1. There in week 1. Quick recap who I'm taking this week. Starting out in Philadelphia on Thursday, taking the Eagles over the Cowboys. In Brazil, taking the Chargers, Justin Herbert, and a close game over the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And on Sunday, our first game on Sunday, I'm taking the Commanders, Jay Daniels over the Giants. In Atlanta, I'm taking the Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers over the Falcons. In Seattle, I'm taking the 49ers and Brock Purdy over the Seahawks. In Green Bay, I'm taking the Packers, Jordan Love over the Lions and Jared Goff. And in Buffalo, I'm taking Josh Allen and the Bills over Lamar Jackson and the Ravens for week 1. Comment below who your favorite team is playing and if you think they're going to win this week in week 1. With that being said, I will see you right back here, week 2, coming up next Tuesday. With that being said, have a good day, stay safe, and peace out. Don't forget, watch, like, subscribe, tell your friends to do the same if they've not done so yet already. With that being said, have a good day. And don't forget, hit that notification button below so you know there's a new video. With that being said, have a good day, stay safe, and peace out. See you next week on Tuesday. NFL prediction quick version coming up shortly after this video too. Bye for now, have a good day, everyone, and see you next Tuesday in week 2. Bye for now, and stay safe. See you, everyone.